Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the May 17th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. The main purpose of tonight's meeting is to hold a public hearing on the Middle Housing Comprehensive Plan updates. As a reminder to those tuning in, Planning Commission has already submitted a recommendation to Council about Middle Housing Municipal Code amendments. Depending on the outcome of tonight's discussion and motions, Planning Commission may decide to close our public hearing on these comprehensive plan amendments this evening. Hey, thank you. Before we move on to the agenda items tonight, I'd like to acknowledge our hybrid meeting format. The City of Bothell is providing the option to attend this meeting both in person and virtually by Zoom. For those on Zoom, please note that the chat and Q&A features are not enabled in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act. Public comment and hearing testimony will be allowed both in person and online with Zoom tonight. Those wishing to comment via Zoom or in written comments were asked to submit an online form by 3 p.m. today. Email was encouraged as well and will be acknowledged. Those in attendance may also make comments, and those wishing to comment were asked to indicate their desire to comment on the sign-in sheets. If you haven't taken the opportunity and would like to, they're over there by the door. Let's see, the Imagine Bothell notice, the city website, and tonight's agenda all provided information to the public on how to provide comments. Tonight's meeting is going to be streamed live as well as recorded and available for later viewing on the city's YouTube channel. A call-in number was provided on the meeting agenda for members of the public who wish to call in by phone and listen live to our meeting. For our dial-in callers, during staff presentations, staff will make every effort to specify which materials they're referencing verbally so that everyone can follow along. At this point, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the attendance of tonight's meeting. Chair Kiernan is absent and is excused, and as Vice Chair, I, Commissioner Curd, will be guiding the procedure of the meeting tonight. When I call your name, can you please test your mic? Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Westerbeck.
Here.
Commissioner Robson.
Here.
Commissioner Anders. He's not here. And Commissioner Gustafson.
Here.
Thank you. In addition, tonight from the city, we have Deputy Community Development Director Ashley Winchell, Community Engagement Specialist Sarah Frost, Senior Strategic Planner Dave Boyd, and Deputy Public Works Director Steve Morikawa in attendance. And we also have Jesse London from OTAC. Lastly, before we begin, I'd like to reiterate some meeting guidelines for all attendees. Please speak clearly and pause frequently. Please state your name each time before speaking and mute your microphone when not speaking. If you're also streaming the live feed, please turn off the sound as there is a delay. For commissioners, at specific breaks in the presentation, I will be calling on members who wish to speak or ask a question. If you want to speak, please indicate that by raising your hand. This is going to help avoid the problem with 2 or more people speaking at the same time. Identify yourself before asking a question, making or seconding a motion, or participating in debate. And again, please mute your microphone when not speaking. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comment. This time is for comments about issues not on tonight's agenda. The city has accepted visitor comment in writing, as well as accepted sign-in sheets for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments which were submitted to staff no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all commissioners and are part of the record. In summary, we received 4 written comments this afternoon, so thank you to those who provided them. One was asking for clarification on the consistency between townhome definitions. 2 were in favor of Middle Housing Comprehensive Plan amendments, and 1 opposed to 5-story buildings, which is not being considered with tonight's amendments, but will be addressed during consideration of the Downtown Transition Zone zoning code amendments a little bit later. Not this evening. We have individuals in the audience who may like to make public comment. Please note the City of Bothell and I do not tolerate verbal harassment. If you've signed up to speak, I welcome you to step up to the podium, click the speaker button on the microphone to activate it, identify yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And tonight we'll be using the technology at hand to help you frame your timing. So there will be a green light when the speaker timing is on, and then it will flash yellow when there's 10 seconds left, is it? Yeah, 10 seconds, and then it will finally show red when your time is up. And I'll ask that you please mute your microphone afterwards. So thank you. I'd like to recognize that Commissioner Anders has joined us via Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so I guess, Deputy Director, if you could go through the list of people who'd like to speak.
We don't have anyone signed up at this time to speak under this section of public comment. If anyone in the Zoom audience wishes to speak, if you could raise your hand, I can give you permission to talk. All right. Mr. Swanson, if you'd like to speak on matters not related to the public hearing tonight. Okay, great. Go ahead.
I'd just like to extend my sympathies to David Boyd, and I know he's got a terrible job. So I wouldn't do it. I want to point out that on December 21st, that the sun rises only to 16.7 degrees off the horizon. So if a building's 35 feet tall, at high noon, the shadow is almost 200 feet long. That's the shortest that shadow will be all day. In the wintertime, when the sun just barely rises, and then at apogee it's 16.7, that's a 200-foot shadow, 3.5 times. That's a lot of shade. And it concerns me that living in here close to 48th parallel, that we're not doing comprehensive shade and shadow studies, at least none that I've seen. Maybe they're being done. But comprehensive shade and shadow studies should be done without exception to see what the effect is going to be upon the neighbors, the gardens, the plants. I've been trying to keep a rhododendron alive in my backyard for 30 years. I'm telling you, the shade and shadow thing is serious. It will change the animal life. It'll change the plant life. It will change how fast the snow melts from the roads. So please pay attention to shade and shadow. I saw 5 deer this last week. I live just a block below the high school. And I lived here for 25 years. I never saw a deer. Now the last 3 or 4 years, I saw 5 this week go through to my backyard. I'm thinking, where do they even get water? I grab a paper cup, go out on the West Hill, and then look around for a clean pool to dip in and get a drink of water. This infill, which is colloquially known as underutilized, it's overutilized. It's overutilized by everything but people. So I wish there'd be a little mercy for the animals that have been here for thousands of years, and don't forget about the salmon dying from the tire dust, please. That should be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others who'd like to speak for items that are not on tonight's agenda? Please come forward.
Because it's the comp plan, right?
Tonight's agenda is about the comprehensive plan amendments. That's right.
Yep. My name is Justin. I thought this would be more about the code amendments themselves, but I still want to make the point anyway. The city of Bothell is proposing adding parking requirements for ADUs, 1 per unit. There are some exceptions if you're close to, I think, 1.5 mile. But I just wanted to point out sort of a bit of a logical inconsistency between a single-family home, which would require 3+1, so that'd be 4, and a duplex, which would require 2. I pray that middle housing will not be hurt by what I'm saying here. Like, you don't go that direction. But I just think that having 4 versus 2 is a little bit off. I came up with a few examples. Kirkland has no parking requirements for 1 ADU, and 1, if you have 2 ADUs with exceptions, available street parking within 600 feet of property, or if it's within a 1/2 mile frequent transit. King County, if you're in the county, has no parking requirements for ADUs. Snohomish County, they mentioned that they require 2 for SFRs, and this got me thinking that we already say 3 for SFRs in single-family homes in Bothell, which seems to be a bit higher than what is probably the average of 2. So even if we were to say no for at least 1 ADU, we'd still have 3, which is more than, say, Snohomish County, which says you need 2 for a single-family home, right? So, yeah, that's the reason you end up with double, really, is you have 3 plus 1. And then I had, I think, yeah, Kenmore, parking for Kenmore. If you have, sorry, I was almost ready with this one. Where is it? Parking, yeah, no parking requirements in Kenmore either. So Kenmore, no parking requirements. Kirkland, no parking requirements unless you have 2 ADUs and they allow street parking. King County has no parking requirements at all. Snohomish County has none in the urban zone. And if you're in a rural zone in Snohomish County, there are you do have to have some parking requirements. So I'm saying that this is, especially with the 3, it might not make sense to sort of punish single-family homes who want to add an ADU versus other middle housing types like a duplex, for example. I just wanted to kind of point out that inconsistency, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed a couple more hands. Come on up.
I just had a question as to the lack
Can
of...
you state your name for the record,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry. My name is Don Pelham. But I was wondering about the roads here in town. It's just we're building an awful lot of structures in here, multifamily and everything, but the roads are all still the same size. It's getting a little more difficult to drive around this place. I don't know what you folks are doing, but, or if you have a plan to increase the traffic flow.
Thanks for your comment. This session is usually just providing comments. We're not allowed to address people individually, but thank you. Your comment is noted and appreciated. Yeah, come on up.
Ready to go? Do I have to press a button?
Oh, that muted it. Can you press it again?
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Thank you.
Oh, okay, I see a green light. My name is Gary Smith. I first owe the commission an apology because when I was here in January speaking, I made a couple of misstatements, which Commissioner Westerbrook set me straight on. One was I was commenting about 7 to 8 story buildings in the city. I think the limit is it 6?
7 downtown.
It is 7 downtown.
Oh, I thought it was
6.
75.
6. 6 stories.
Yep.
Okay.
6 stories, 75.
And secondly, I made a comment about losing our wetlands, which is not supposed to happen, right? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about some values in the Bothell vision statement. I've done some of this before. There are 19 values, and there are certain conservation and environmental values which are listed, as you well know, I'm sure. Among these are respect for the harmony between the built and natural environment, conservation of natural resources, overall single-family residential character, protect, preserve, and enhance features of the natural environment, and protection of native wildlife habitats. Also, I just noted that the City Council was on a retreat in January and came up with what they call a 2040 City Council vision. This was created during this retreat, apparently. There are several statements in this council vision. The one that I want to focus on here is environmental stewardship, and I'm going to quote from this statement. It says, Bothell's beauty lies not only in the peoples of our community, but also the natural landscapes and wildlife of our environment and ecosystems. Wildlife and the people of Bothell alike enjoy and thrive in our vibrant urban forests, lush green neighborhoods with tree-lined streets, and along our extensive trail system and healthy rivers and streams. What I am observing is that there's obviously an increase in population, a decrease in single-family residential homes, a decrease in large trees and our green canopy, decrease in open spaces, and wildlife habitat. What I am seeing in the reverse is increases in concrete and pavement, the number of cars in our community, which lead to more exhaust pollution, and an increase in traffic and drivers looking for on-street parking. What I am not seeing is a commitment from the Planning Commission, I think, to the environmental and conservation values present in these vision statements. The question is, are we going to honor these pesky environmental and conservation values?
Your time has expired, so if you could wrap up.
Please wrap it up.
Yes, okay.
Thanks.
Are we going to honor these pesky environmental and conservation values, or do we need to modify them or get rid of them? I hope I am wrong. And if I am, I assume you will set me straight.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
comment. Are there any others who'd like to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda in the room tonight? Deputy Director, are there any on Zoom?
I don't see any hands on Zoom.
Okay, great. That's great. Yeah, I just, in general response, I'd encourage everyone to stay involved with our comprehensive plan visioning that's going to be going on this summer and throughout the year. And stay tuned for other ways to make your voices heard, especially on natural environment sections, which are near and dear to mine and many other commissioners' hearts. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 19th, 2023. Before I ask for a motion, I'd like to check to see if there are any edits. Did anyone notice anything? If not, feel free to make a motion. Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I have a question. We state in the minutes that the May 3 Planning Commission meeting has been scheduled to May 24th. That was updated as of the discussion, but I do wonder if we might want to modify that in case anyone is looking at the minutes, because I believe we are going to use a new date for that meeting. I don't know.
That's a good question, and I imagine that best practices are to keep the minutes as written. But that's really important to know that, we don't want to mislead people into thinking that, these are the guiding plans and the most recent things. Does staff have a input?
So that's correct, but the minutes should reflect the discussion at the meeting, but it's good to point out both now and we'll also be addressing that rescheduling of that meeting in the staff reports. But so we haven't settled on a date, but it will not be held next week on the 24th.
I would add that the minutes really only need to reflect decisions that were made and who spoke, and so we could also just edit the minutes for reports from staff to state that Deputy Director Winchell reported on a number of events coming up, and then that wouldn't have any specific dates memorialized, since technically no decisions were made off of me giving out a report. But it's up to you all on how you want the minutes to reflect the meeting.
I think that unless there's significant opposition, I'd say let's retain the meeting minutes as written. And, we're commenting tonight, and tonight's meeting minutes will be published, and they will be the guiding. Hopefully people aren't confused by that. That's just a kind of relic of the process. So thanks for bringing that up, though. That's important. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Commissioner Robson.
Motion to approve.
A second? Commissioner Gustafson.
Second, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have unanimous consent. Thank you. Moving on, we have new business. Is there any new business tonight?
No new business.
Thank you. All right, I would like to open tonight's public hearing on Middle Housing Comprehensive Plan amendments. We'll start with a brief intro, I'm assuming from Senior Planner Boyd and Jesse London. And then we'll entertain some clarification questions from the commission before moving on to a moment for public comment. And that section of public comment is specifically for Middle Housing Comprehensive Amendments. So if you're here, you're in the right spot. After that, we'll close the public hearing and have deliberation by the commission. And yeah, so Senior Planner Boyd, please take it away.
Thank you. And I don't know if we can turn the lights directly over the dais, but for the benefit of the folks using, kind of washes out the slide, but I'll go ahead and start. I am joined by Jesse London from Senior Planner with OTAC. He's here primarily to answer any questions that come up. They have taken the lead on drafting the comprehensive plan amendments, but it's definitely been a collaborative approach. So, and I'm going to repeat some of what I presented on April 5th for the benefit of the viewing public. So the process really started with amendments to allow corner lot duplexes that were done in 2019. And when those were adopted, both Planning Commission and Council indicated a desire to add other middle housing types. And that was funded by a Commerce grant. A second Commerce grant has funded the initial work, the code amendment work on the middle housing. And Planning Commission made their recommendation in October of 22. Since then, we've had a number of city council study sessions, and we also since then received a third Commerce grant to fund these plan amendments and implementation efforts. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the next slide. Also, state legislation has passed and been signed now that it will require Washington communities, including Bothell, to allow middle housing. And also, that's House Bill 1110, House Bill 1337, also includes changes that will be required for accessory dwelling units, most of which I think we've covered in the Planning Commission recommendation. And I just a little bit, I'll touch really briefly. The idea of these code amendments in Bothell will be to allow middle housing types in all residential neighborhoods, and it will likely happen in a way that they'll be scattered among the neighborhoods, much as it was in traditional neighborhoods before exclusionary single-family zoning was instituted. And there's been a lot of talk about affordability. Generally, when we're talking about middle housing, I prefer to use the term attainable. The market for middle housing is, in this diagram, it shows it is between 80 and 120% of area median income. That's affordable to households that make that much money. I was at a presentation yesterday that indicated that it was more like 60 to 110%, but it'll vary from community to community. Accessory dwelling units will be somewhat more affordable than that, serving population in the 50 to 80% of area median income, whereas traditional single-family residences are in the 120% and above of median income. And of course, the lower types, and this is just part of the solution to our housing situation. The lower affordability types are generally in multifamily housing and done by affordable housing developers. So the things that we're working on right now, further public engagement. We sent out a citywide mailer to over 20,000 addresses in mid-April. We had a community forum on May 3rd. Many of you were there. We had a turnout of over 50 people, plus in addition to Planning Commission and City Council. We launched another survey, a second survey, at the forum, and that closes tomorrow. So anyone listening who hasn't taken the survey, we encourage you to do that and spread the word to friends, because we want to get as broad a response as we can. We're nearing 500 responses as of this morning, so we'd like to at least get over 500. So. The grant is also funding work on racial equity and an anti-displacement report, making recommendations to change problematic language in our plan and code documents, and also identifying vulnerable areas that might be vulnerable to displacement. That work is being done in conjunction with the market analysis that's also evaluating where middle housing will be feasible and answering questions about that, about the impact on taxes, some of the concerns that we've heard in our public engagement. So, and then the other part of the grant work are the comp plan amendments that we're meeting on tonight. So the goal with the comp plan amendments are essentially to enhance the comprehensive plan's tolerance for the code amendment, both the code amendment recommendations from the Planning Commission and the requirements that have now come down from the state. So we think that these amendments are broad enough that they cover both situations and will apply in both situations. So those, again, for those who may be toning in for the first time, the Planning Commission recommendations include allowing up to 4 plexes on all existing, or in all existing residential zones, special rules for cottage and courtyard housing on larger lots in residential zones, bonus units in new plats that can be met with a variety of middle housing types, and changes to our accessory dwelling units to remove some impediments and to include, to allow 2 ADUs per single family unit, both an attached and a detached unit, which again is consistent with the new state regulations. So the approach in the plan amendments is, first of all, to identify, remove, and replace exclusionary language. And there's an example here that I also included last time. One of the comments we got from the Commission was in this Bothell Vision Statement number 7 to include the environment in the language about compatibility with the scale of existing neighborhoods. We also received a comment today that I passed on to the Commission that recommended adding form and character after the statement at the end of that sentence, or that section, to scale. So the recommendation was to facilitate a range of new housing types and infill development compatible with the scale, form, and character of existing neighborhoods and the new and their environment addition. So if Planning Commission is amenable to that, staff feels that we could add the form to make it scale and form, but we don't recommend adding character. That was one of the terms that has been tagged as a loaded term that's used in exclusionary language often. Another Part of the amendments is changing the reference in all of our residential zones where it talks about housing in residential zones, where we're proposing middle housing, not to use the term middle housing, but to use the term that the state uses, which is moderate density housing. So most of these residential neighborhoods are now identified as being suitable for low and moderate density housing. So they still allow single-family housing, the construction of new single-family housing. They just allow additional types. There was a suggestion in the exhibit, the comment that was received today about adding the definition of townhomes that's in the state legislation. The comp plan doesn't have definitions for individual housing types. Those are in the code, and which is where we think it belongs, those more detailed definitions. What the comp plan does is, what we've tried to do is provide a very inclusive definition that moderate density housing includes, but is not limited to duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. So it leaves open other types of middle housing as well. There's no change here. This was just to identify that the proposed amendments also included applying the rules for lot size reductions and averaging that exist for R9600 to the other zones that have primarily been used for detached residences. And then in the sub-area plans section of the comprehensive plan, we brought two options to Planning Commission last time. One that kind of tweaked the wording, and one that developed kind of a new template for the introductory language. And Planning Commission felt that the template was more appropriate, so the document you have tonight includes that for most of the sub-area plans. We applied that as it was needed. Some of the language in the sub-area plan was already compliant, and some of the sub-areas are not primarily low and medium density residential, so they have slightly different language. And then finally, we brought to you tonight findings, and to some extent they repeat the findings that were in the findings for the code amendments, but two new ones were added as a result of the discussion last night to include in the findings some things that the Planning Commission had stated that they would like to see additional work done on. One is additional education and outreach on helping people to do middle housing types, and then along with that, changes to Bothell design and construction standards, specifications, utility requirements, building codes, and other legal requirements to help facilitate middle housing development. So with that, our recommendation for Planning Commission action tonight is a motion and vote to approve the findings as amended as need be to reflect tonight's testimony and discussion. I do have both the findings and the plan amendments available to put up on the screen if you'd like. I've already added the exhibits that were circulated today, and we'll add any testimony that we have specific to these code amendments.
Great, thanks so much. This time is for commissioners to ask clarifying questions. If you have a clarifying question, let me know. Yes, Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. This is just a really short one. Dave, could you repeat what the number of the House bill are that were just recently approved by the state?
The middle housing bill was HB 1110.
Okay.
I guess
1110.
the true bill now that it's gone through the whole process is ES 2 HB 1110, but I tend to prefer the shorter
Okay.
description. And the accessory dwelling unit bill is HB 1337. And those are all available on the state website.
Yeah, thank you.
One note on the accessory dwelling unit bill. There was one line item veto that the governor made that, but it didn't affect what's being proposed here in Bothell.
Other clarifying questions before we move to public comment? Commissioner Anders, did I see your hand? Okay, sorry.
No, thank you.
All right, well, hearing none, let's move on to public comment. We have individuals in the audience tonight who have signed up to speak over at the doorway, and we'll be going in the order at which you had signed in to speak. Because there aren't too many of us tonight, if you haven't signed up, don't feel like you have to get up, because I'll hopefully be able to call you after we've gone through the people who've signed up. So thanks for coming. Please note, the City of Bothell and I do not tolerate verbal harassment. If you've signed up to speak, I'll welcome you to step up to the podium. Click on, you don't even need to click onto the mic. It's red, and that means it's recording. And then identify yourself clearly, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Again, we're using the new technology for the commission tonight. So the colorful lights will change when you have 1 minute to go, I think, and then red means please wrap it up. All right, Deputy Director, who's first?
We have Don Pelham signed up to speak, but I believe he spoke earlier and has since left.
Okay.
So I would say anyone who wishes to speak may approach the podium.
Okay. Yes, go ahead and approach the podium if you have something to speak on tonight's agenda item. Come on up.
Oh, this will be really short. I had gone through, I guess I'm out of time. My name is Justin Buffard. I had gone through Dave's agenda item, and I looked at his proposed changes to the comp plan wording, and as I was mentioning to one of the commissioners here, some of that older language definitely did not age well. The updates are long overdue. The particular area I live in was especially bad. That was West Hill. And you can kind of see sort of the difference in mindset. My particular one that Dave mentioned today that I'm in big support of was character was and still is a loaded term. There's no real definition for it. It's sort of to me, it's a bit of a dog whistle. So I prefer size and scale and things like that are proposed in the proposed amendments. It makes a lot of sense, and with a lot of the historical things that were used in code to prevent certain developments, people, types, things like that. It's nice to see this kind of change, so I support that. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Come on up.
I don't know if any of you have ever spent any time in the suburbs outside of Moscow, Russia. I had opportunity to do that quite a bit in my former life as an engineer. It's not a fun place to visit because of the high density housing. Everybody lives in flats. There's no animals. There's no neighborhoods. You got fences right up against the street. I took a look at 2022 survey results, and it's a landslide against urban densification. So I don't know what's been going on the last year, but no one paid any attention to what the Bothell residents thought in 2022. 6 out of 10 people totally against urban densification. Then we have the expensive housing ruse. I've already pointed this out in the past. It's cost 30% less to rent an apartment in Bothell than it did in 1991 when I moved here. That's the truth when indexed against the minimum wage. I brought up this tire dust issue, how dangerous that is to salmon. 90%, up to 90% salmon dying in North Creek. We have the kokanee salmon, which is on the verge of endangered. There's already one native species that's totally wiped out. It's been gone for 20 years. Another one's hanging on by the fingertips. And we're going to double the traffic, and you're hoping that the RTA will provide a solution and force people into buses. Didn't work for light rail. It's still empty. I don't know. The residents of Bothell have made their desires clear. And what you guys won't do is you won't put it up to public vote. Do you know why you won't do that? Because it will fail. Because the people don't want this. And this change, if it doesn't completely destroy the watershed, all I can say, thank God for Seattle Cedar watershed. Maybe we should build intensity housing in the Cedar watershed and just turn Lake Washington into sewer. This is going to change Bothell forever. It's going to change Bothell forever. And we can sue and get out of the GMA. We don't have to follow lockstep with the GMA. We could do that on the kokanee issue alone. So why are you doing it? You're going to force me to move. I'm not going to live in a place that replaces the word equality with equity.
Thanks for your time. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight?
I just can't hear you.
Oh, is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? Anne, come on up.
Ann Agard, 16524 104th Avenue Northeast. Give me 1 second because
Sure.
my hearing aid didn't get plugged in right here.
No worries.
Second. That helps. Ann Agard, 16524 104th Avenue Northeast. I'm here to address these comprehensive plan amendments as presented to the Planning Commission. My first comment, these comments all come from the signed and adopted HB 1110. So the first comment was to add the words form and character to your section on LUP 6. I totally disagree that character is exclusionary language. I cannot imagine that the state legislature would pass exclusionary language in their own bill or that the governor would sign it. I view, and I'm thinking back over the photos that you were shown many, many months ago that tried to characterize, and I use the word characterize, the type of housing we would look like. And the whole import was to say it looks like single-family housing. And that's what its character is. So I would encourage you to add that term. This is what is in state law, and it is not exclusionary. The second comment has to do with the townhouses. I understand why you don't put definitions. I included it because it is in the definition of the state law, and I thought it was helpful because the city of Bothell has not included it in their list of middle housing, moderate housing options. And when we took the tour, I agree with you, Sarah, it was a wonderful experience, very, very helpful. They're townhouses. You look at them. They're considered moderate housing or middle housing. So I just want to make sure that the list, which currently does not include townhouses, includes it, and I added the definition just to make sure that we were consistent with the state definition. That can obviously be added later. So, thank you. I will be back again as you work through this process.
Thanks so much. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on an item? This item.
We have a member on Zoom that would like to speak.
All right. Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone in the room raising their hand, so let's go ahead over to Zoom.
All right, Ken, you are now on. I'll start the timer.
No, thank you. Ken Burton here, current resident of Bothell. My question is really a two-part question on the survey that ends tomorrow. How do you plan to disseminate the results of that survey to the community? Second part of that question is, how are those results from the survey then utilized to set the agenda, or how does that factor into the planning direction for the Planning Commission? Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. We don't do Q&A during this session just to keep process going, but that's something that we'll address during deliberations. So is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, that's all. Just want to find out more about how the public input goes into the planning session, so we can take that offline as a follow-up survey or
Great.
agenda notes.
Thanks for tuning in tonight. Yeah. Thanks for giving comment. All right. Are there any other attendees on Zoom that would like to speak? Deputy Director?
I don't see any other hands raised.
I'll give it about 3 or 4 more seconds just in case someone is looking for that button. If not, all right. With that, I will close tonight's public hearing and we'll move on to a moment of deliberation among the commission. Senior Planner Boyd, do you have something?
I would like to provide some clarification on that last comment. The survey results will be tabulated next week, and we'll be reporting back to, we'll be posting those on our website. We'll be reporting back to City Council. And they will inform the City Council's final decisions. Unfortunately, the timing didn't work out. Well, the May 2022 survey certainly did inform the Planning Commission recommendations, and there were some changes that were made based on what we heard in the survey. And we'll be open to changes or the City Council will be able to make changes based on what what's in this survey and what's reported back. We'll also be adding on our webpage summaries of the discussion at the community forum. So that's all coming.
That'll be great. Thanks for that context. We're now moving into a time of deliberations, and this is where we can have any conversation about the proposed amendments, which are redlined or gray-lined on your document in front of you. I'm wondering if maybe we just kind of breeze through some of the language, unless someone wants to just start us out with questions. I don't know how people have prepared for tonight's meeting. If you have questions that are burning and you'd like to discuss, please let loose. Otherwise, I think we'll start on page 14 of the packet, 15 of the packet, and we'll go ahead and just move through. Not each, I don't want to belabor each individual sub-area because there is significant overlap and we'd like to respect everyone's time here, but just make sure that we know what we're looking at. The comprehensive plan is part of the commission's space and yeah, we're the stewards of the comprehensive plan and we should know what's in it and what we're changing. So we'll start with the vision statements on page 15 at the top. There's 7 and 8. This was changed a little bit, or it was moved to 7, some combination, and the verbiage has changed a little bit since the last time we've seen it. Is there any comment on that? Yeah, Commissioner Gustafson.
Hi, Sarah Gustafson here. I see that there's a lot of discussion around the vision statement because there's a lot of feeling about it. The 19 statements have a lot of history wrapped into them. So what I'm going to say will sound quite radical. I think we might want to consider putting the 19 statements aside and using the Bothell 2040 vision statement that City Council produced and making that the vision statement in the comprehensive plan, because just as in when you move or you change something in your house, you need to clear away a lot of things and start afresh. I think, as opposed to wordsmithing things, I do think we might want to consider doing that.
Any feedback on that? Other comments about vision statement? Yeah.
Thank you. Claire Robson here. Just in a question to Commissioner Gustafson. So I see that we're eliminating, we're changing verbiage. Is there, do you feel that just in this little area of the Bothell vision statement we're dealing with today, that it is lacking, that there are things here that you feel like are not included in that other statement? I mean, I think I just want to kind of get your perspective a little more on why we would make that change, because to be honest with you, I'm not really that familiar with the new Bothell statement. So if you could just give me a few details on what you're picturing, I would appreciate it, and maybe people in the public might appreciate that as well.
Sir?
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Robson, for that great question. What I'm referring to with the Bothell 2040 statement is something that our public commenters also talked about, is that the City Council went into a retreat, and after a lot of very emotional and difficult deliberations, the City Council, which includes people from all sides of the political spectrum, put together 6 goals that encapsulate what Bothell is and what it wants to be: environment, a place of celebration, a beloved community. And I'm getting a little further ahead of middle housing here, but I wish we could use those 6 statements and fold in these ideas of middle housing into those, because middle housing is related to creating a community that accepts people of all economic backgrounds. And by folding it in, it transcends some of the language that often can become very technical. That's why I'm suggesting it.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
I really appreciate that comment and that feedback, and I'm also not as familiar with the revised vision statement for the city. I'm wondering, if we were to consider what Commissioner Gustafson is doing, how does it affect the timeline for this?
Dave, can I jump in on this one?
Go ahead.
I think one thing to keep in mind is we're looking at updating the vision statement with a comprehensive plan. And so essentially these changes are to get us to the comprehensive plan update. And so we are already planning on having broad community conversations about these 19 statements. We had some of those conversations with you all a few months ago, and then we've also had those with City Council. And so I would just, as staff, maybe ask you all to step back a little bit in terms of thinking about how many times we completely change a vision statement in the next few years, since that was their vision statement put together for their strategic plan. And this is our vision statement or guiding principles for the comprehensive plan. There might be some benefit of either determining whether these changes are appropriate for this vision statement and or just thinking about what we need to do to get us to middle housing, and then also keeping in mind that in about 18 months, we'll be adopting an entirely new comprehensive plan where we are already looking at council's vision, this vision, and community conversations to try to come up with something that'll last us the next 30 years. It's, of course, up to the Planning Commission of what you all want to do, but just want to keep it in mind of we've got these two projects going on at the same time that can kind of, yeah.
Thanks for that feedback, and that was appreciated for me too. I know maybe I kind of stepped a little ahead when I said that it's, our document to steward. Okay, well, it also goes through council, and council had specifically said that they wanted to kind of keep things the way it was this year so that the comprehensive plan update process can take its course and do what it needs to do. So thanks for that comment about these statements. Any specific comments about the verbiage that's used here, considering that it's changed? If not, I'll give it a couple seconds and we'll move on. All right. Next on page 15 is the land use element. So here there are some edits, striking and additions. These look like they just bring it in alignment with regional plans. It's kind of a requirement. So any comments on that? We'll move on. Okay. The next change. Oh yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Beck.
I don't object to adding townhouses if for some reason it's appropriate to do so. It's sometimes hard to say every single form of middle housing, here's a list, but if it's more consistent and it's not a big deal because it matches the state or something like that, I wouldn't object to it. So, but it's not a deal breaker for me either. I just wanted to at least bring that up.
Any feedback on that? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Robson.
I do think it would be beneficial to add townhouses as a distinction. I mean, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, to a lot of people almost reads as the same thing. It's a similar format. Inside a single family home, you have several residences, where townhomes are a distinct format of housing that's different from cottage housing, courtyard housing, and the plexes, if you will. So we may just want to say up to four plexes, town, or something along that too, if we want to keep, keep it brief, while including the various formats that are included in moderate housing. I think it's an important element of middle housing that I think that the document could benefit from that inclusion to illustrate the various forms that are encapsulated in the word moderate density.
Senior Planner Boyd, do you have a statement?
Yeah, I guess I was just going to say that, first of all, townhomes are kind of that's a interesting term. That's refers to the configuration. So a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, and then beyond that, it can all be done in a townhouse form. And so if you say townhomes, do you mean beyond 4 units? So that's why that level of detail we think is most appropriate to have in the code amendment, in the code, which it is. And the comprehensive plan language does use the term, it's inclusive of townhomes, it just doesn't get into a detailed definition. If we do a detailed definition for townhomes, we should do the same for the other middle housing types, I would think. And again, we think the appropriate place for that detail is in the code amendments.
I'm seeing some nodding heads, and that makes a lot of sense to keep the specifics in the code while having the overarching vision in the comp plan. Any other comments on that? All right, we're moving on to the next page here. On page 16, there's discussion about specific zoning classifications. instead of designations. And this is where averaging is spread to other lower density lots. Averaging, I'm wondering if maybe we could get a quick refresher on what averaging would look like on a large lot in Bothell.
So currently the code allows lot reduction and averaging in the R9600 zone. So in R9600, you can have lots as small as 8,400 square feet, and as long as the average of all is at least 9,600. This would just allow you to do the same thing in the other zone. Go down to the next classification for a minimum, as long as the average meets the designated average.
Mm-hmm. Any comments on that? One thing I really like about this that fits with our vision and our discussions and what we've heard from comments is that it's incremental, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not a hard and fast line in the ground. One side of the street is dense, the other isn't. It matters based on each lot in its capacity. So I'm a fan. Yeah, Commissioner Westerbeck.
I'm not sure if we're to this point, so you can tell me if we're not. I had a question about the 40,000 square foot lot size language versus the other number 2, 96, 84, 72, etc. I know you guys are aware of this. It says in 40,000, this designation shall provide for detached residential development, in addition to allowing one ADU, one DADU. And then, of course, for the next one down, with the other smaller lot sizes, it says designation shall provide low to moderate density housing development. And maybe I just need a refresher. I don't remember what we covered in middle housing. I thought you were still allowed to do the moderate missing middle on the 40,000, as long as obviously as long as it's not ECA area or something like that. Is there a reason there's different language for the 40,000?
I don't know, Jeff, if Jesse has any specifics on that.
I don't actually.
Okay. It is a incrementally larger zone than any of the others. So, and it wouldn't make sense to allow the same lot reduction and averaging in our 40,000 because the next lower zone is 9,600. So if we wanted to apply something like that there, we'd have to come up with a different approach. But
oh, I understand. So this is only about the lot averaging. I thought it was going to also saying we're casting the die here for detached only on those lots and saying like if you, I thought it would still be subject to the four unit once you jump to the building or once you jump to our land use code. So maybe I'm combining or confusing different sections of code.
no, you're right. It should include allowing the range of low and moderate density housing development. So.
Okay.
All right. I think that those kind of four main gray line, red line issues pretty much summarize the changes that are made into individual sub-area code as well. There's minor differences based on the sub-area and its existing zoning classifications. For example, like the R40,000 doesn't show up in some of the neighborhoods because R40,000 zoning is like log cabin zoning. So you don't see that downtown. You see it up on like Norway Hill or in some of the really sensitive wetland areas near North Creek. So I'm okay moving on unless there's any other things that people want to bring up. I want to give a lot of time tonight because I want to make sure that I'm not breezing through. Okay, well, if we're ready to move on to the findings, conclusions, and recommendations, if people are ready to make a decision for council, I will say that this is another moment that we have to have deliberations on the individual amendments to the comp plan, also responding or thinking about the public comment that we've heard and understanding that. So I'm turning my page to 10 of 47, where you'll find the draft commission findings, conclusions, and recommendations. The first 6 or first 5 are very procedural. So I'd like to just kind of give some time for people to read 6 through 15. I'm not going to read them out loud. Maybe I can summarize them very quickly. So 6 is talking about where the findings are based on. 7 recognizes that we're experiencing a housing crisis and that we don't control. There's an urgent need to allow and facilitate new housing in urbanized areas with existing infrastructure, and to promote affordable housing options in those variety of ways. Number 8 is talking specifically about middle housing and its history in America, especially prior to exclusively single-family zoned neighborhoods in the 40s. I will note that the finding number 8 does use the word character. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if you wanted to go through all
Yeah.
of them first. So I think we have to be careful to not put in exclusionary language in our findings. And traditional American residential development is somewhat dated if we think about who's American, et cetera. So I wonder if we could rephrase that to something else, or if we even need those words.
Yeah, the first thing to think of when editing by committee is to see, does it even need to exist? And so let's see if middle housing has provided attainable housing options, but is no longer allowed in most exclusively single-family zoned neighborhoods, maybe. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I wonder if we might want to use the opportunity mentioned by Commissioner Jones to dig a little deeper into the meaning of exclusionary and exclusionary zoning and reflect some on what it has meant in the United States, why it has been harmful to our neighborhoods, the whole history of court cases that have had deliberations which revolve around people putting people in their place, which means not in our neighborhoods. I would suggest that we look at that issue either in the finding number 8 or perhaps address it in the frequently asked questions on our website, because we hear a lot, what exclusionary zoning, what does it mean? So I would like to be able to define that either in our findings or on our website or both.
I'm seeing a lot of head nodding in agreement. I think that for the purposes of editing by committee, these specific findings, that is a little bit of a steep ask for tonight.
Yes.
And I like the idea of having a resource online that, we have that web page, and other city web pages have frequently asked questions, and that might be a good way to centrally locate kind of what we've been hearing from some people and questions that we've been hearing about others, like you mentioned. So, yeah. Do you want to?
Thanks. I wanted to add one thing. And this idea, I wish I could say it came from my own head, but it actually came from Cliff Cawthon from Habitat for Humanity. When I was speaking with him, he noted that there's really nothing to explain it on the website.
Okay, that's noted. And maybe we make that Just a note to staff. I don't know if it necessarily needs to go up to council just to go back down to staff, but that's interesting. And yes, I'm seeing a lot of, go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
Oh, I was just going to agree with Commissioner Gustafson, and I would just ask the planning staff if we could consider this, maybe, I agree, we don't want to slow this down, but for future findings and draft statements, maybe we could consider putting in some definitions or descriptions of what exclusionary types of zoning have done in the past. Maybe that would be a way to also handle it.
I did see Commissioner Anders, you had your hand raised.
I did. I was just going to agree with Commissioner Gustafson on the comments about having this in frequently asked questions. And I also was going back to I was going to go back to number 8 and thinking about whether we even needed the phrase in traditional American residential development. And if we're considering it, I would say that we don't, but addressing this type of thing in frequently asked questions first.
You're kind of cutting in and out there. Sorry, we didn't hear the last bit. And now.
Oh, I was just saying that, if we were voting on what to do with this language, I would say we don't need it. But if we're going to address it in FAQs, that makes sense to me as well. I think that was a really good idea.
I'm seeing a lot of head nods. Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. Even if we include it in FAQ, I really think we should cut out traditional American residential development. It's setting off all kinds of red lights. Okay. Let's just put, if we could just have that cut, I don't think it's necessary.
And if you'd like, I can put up the verbiage on the screen. And
that'd be great. Yeah.
So let me share my screen again. Okay, I've made, I've stricken that phrase and then also replace character with form, which is what we discussed in the.
Yeah, Commissioner Westerbeck.
I just want to concur and agree wholeheartedly with every commissioner has spoken on this. When we entered this missing middle discussion almost 2 years ago now, I have often said, as with HB 1110 and others, that exclusionary zoning is reason enough to reinstate middle housing. We need no other reason. Affordable and attainable housing, all those other things, they're great, they're necessary, they're almost the smokescreen, they're the bonus. Exclusionary zoning really never should have happened. And so I've been on the record for years saying that really is job one, it's reason number one. So it does deserve probably a point in here or to be integrated into the point somewhere and to be on the FAQ page. I mean, I personally have multiple books at home about that very topic, so I feel strongly about that.
Thanks for feedback. Not seeing any more. I propose we move on. And yeah, just keep those red lines in there. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Jones.
Sorry, I missed stopping you when you were at number 7.
Go ahead.
So is it okay to go to number 7?
Now is a perfect time. Yep.
I'm going backwards through the document.
I don't usually chair, so this is an exercise in looking down the line for the red. Yeah.
Actually, it's my first time doing this, so I wasn't sure if we were supposed to wait till the end. So, recognizing some of the comments that have been made by the public, should we consider in number 7 including some reference to the environment or something related to the environment and sustainability or something like that? Because right now the way number 7 reads is, and I agree with it, we're experiencing a housing crisis and we need to put up a bunch of housing for a bunch of people where there's infrastructure. It doesn't really say anything about also in complementing or synergistically with the environment and nature and those types of things. So, and I do think that is part of the concern from many members of the public, and it would be important for them to see that we're being responsive to that.
Yeah. Any responses to that? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Westerbeck.
I will add to that. It comes up a lot, I know, in our conversations outside of of Planning Commission, but that is the understanding now by scientists as well, that we can incorporate that into here, that we're doing this for multiple reasons. Obviously, the others we just mentioned, but not the least of which is putting housing where we have existing infrastructure, gets people closer to home, they drive less, they're closer to services, but we also allows us to preserve more of actually the green and park space and natural spaces and not be sprawling out so much. So some sort of reference to that I think is totally appropriate, and I agree with you, Commissioner Jones.
Commissioner Robson.
I agree, though. I agreed immediately with you, even before we reached this section, that we do need something to reflect that we are hearing residents' concerns about the environment. I think there is something about SEPA on 13, but frankly, it reads very cold. A lot of people, when they come in here, they don't understand SEPA. They don't know that that's mandatory for building, reviews and those kinds of things. So I think it is really important, even though maybe redundant to us and to other professionals, I do think that it's necessary to reflect that we are hearing people, that this is a concern to us, because it is very close to the heart, and I would say probably to the majority of residents in Bothell, and we want their voices to be heard, and SEPA doesn't reflect that care. So I just want to second that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say that the SEPA item was more of a procedural.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Is,
So I did take a shot at adding a short phrase at the end of finding 7 for your consideration. Certainly.
Did you use the word synergistic? Did you hear that? Like, I want to add it just to get the word synergistic in there. It gave me chills. Okay.
So yeah, take a look at your screens, make sure that the ending that Senior Planner Boyd has included while responsibly protecting the environment captures your thoughts. Yeah, Commissioner Robson.
Can I just suggest using a word more like preserving and some kind of, something with a little more, maybe to focus on how it's cherished, that we consider it a resource. Certainly responsibly protecting an environment, but, and again, if you can get the word synergistic, no, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. But I do feel like to communicate that it is a Bothell Planning Commission value, and that we see it as a value of, as part of our vision of that the natural environment is included in our vision. Yeah, I like that, cherished. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I know that in the previous section I said let's reduce the number of findings, but I wonder if we might want to introduce a complete new finding about the environment. And I'm going to perhaps state some language from the BOPOP website that has some really cherish type language about the environment. And we believe that middle housing is part of intelligently planning for growth in Bothell, and by doing so will reduce pressure on our beloved green spaces. We want to see more green space and less concrete, whether in downtown or across the city, to create a healthier environment for the bees, bird, and salmon that we cherish. Something like that.
Thoughts or comments on expanding the findings? Yeah.
Commissioner Jones, I very much like the idea of adding that additional statement, because I think I like what Commissioner Boyd wrote for number 7, because I think that is an important part of how we facilitate new housing. But what you're suggesting is something different and important, and I agree. It might be a little long.
Oh yeah, cut it down, please.
but I defer to folks who.
Commissioner Anders.
Tony Enders here. I like the idea of adding another one as well. I thought it was a bit on the long side. And I worry that if we talk about specific, bees and whatever else, what about the deer? What about other things people care about? So maybe we don't get specific about those types of things, but keep it more general because we will forget something. And there are different things that are important to everybody. So unless we can get it all in some way, I think it might be an idea to think about not including those specifics. And the other thing was, I can't remember what you said, but something about doing it intelligently. I worry about that word because for those folks who don't agree with what's happening, it might be offensive because are we saying they aren't thinking about it intelligently? I think we can maybe find a different word that won't be offensive to folks who might not agree. And that's it.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Anders. Those are really good call outs and 100% agree. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. I just want to voice my support for adding another finding to separate environmental out. I think that's a really good point.
Okay, I'm hearing support for adding another finding and not a whole lot of draft language. So I'm wondering if maybe we start out with saying that, oh my gosh, are we really doing this? Middle housing. What is the subject is middle housing. And then we start talking about, I think some of the heart of what was discussed is that it is conserving ecosystem area for many living things, plants and animals, that would otherwise be converted to housing. In this current system of crisis housing. Housing is developed everywhere, right? That it can be. And when it's not only a displacement and equity risk for people, like in number 9, which we're jumping ahead, but it's also a displacement for ecosystems too. And where there's existing infrastructure and there's been existing disturbance for housing, adding infill housing or moderate density housing, whatever we're calling it now, middle housing, is both compatible with the compatible with, let's see what Dave has. Nothing. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Robson, please.
I really don't think we should be writing this on the fly,
No,
frankly. Can
really
we send this
shouldn't.
back to staff and just be like, hey, can you come up with something good? I think it's important, and I don't think we should write it on the fly.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's think about what the impacts are of sending this back to staff and what the timeline will be. So, Dave, what's your opinion?
So we could bring revised findings back on June 7th, I believe. And that could, there are other items scheduled for that night, but I think we could probably address this one fairly quickly. And if you wanted to assign a commissioner or two to craft some language, we could do that. I was going to make an attempt to draft something based on what was being said here, but if you'd rather give it more thought and bring it back, we can do that.
Looking to the commission for thoughts and feedback on that. Commissioner Jones.
I think Senior Planner Boyd is doing a great job editing, and I suspect that his language for this additional finding will probably hit the mark, at least 99% of the mark.
Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job.
So
Go to it.
what I'm hearing is that, yes, we have support for letting Senior Planner Boyd craft some language, bring it back to us on our early June meeting for adoption and recommendation to council. Okay. I would like to get through the rest of these so that we don't have to do it in June, especially because it's surprisingly not even 7:30. So yeah, let's go through. Number 9 is talking about additional work in education and outreach. We like that. Nodding heads. Number 10 is talking about compatibility with design and construction standards, specifications. We touched on that a little bit in the presentation tonight. Number 11 is the identification of areas in Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan, certain policies there. I think that those are exactly what need to be shown, but are there any others? Not seeing any. Okay, 12 just says it's going to be sent to Commerce for review. 13 is this cold SEPA statement. It's just categorical. Any comments so far? Nope. Okay. 14 is list of exhibits. I'm sure that emails from today and from the 24th of April, I think, that were in our inbox this afternoon will be added there. And then also 15 public testimony. I'm sure tonight's TBD will be added as well. All right, conclusions. I will read these ones out just so that we can have a very, very clean session on the 7th. Number 1, the recommended comprehensive plan amendments have been drafted, noticed, reviewed by the public, and considered by the Planning Commission in accordance with all applicable laws of the state of Washington and the city of Bothell. Number 2, the recommended comprehensive plan amendments are necessary to provide options for residential development. Number 3, the recommended code amendments are in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare. Any comments? This is normally where I would ask for a motion to approve, but I think, do we need to have a motion to
You can continue deliberations. You've closed the hearing. So that would also streamline the process on the 7th, and then so continue deliberations to the 7th. Yeah.
I'm looking for that motion. Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I move to proceed as Senior Planner Boyd outlined.
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We have unanimous consent. I do want to recognize the hard work that went into this and thank staff for working with us on the fly with changes and edits by committee, which is never fun. So thanks for your flexibility. We'll move on. Unfinished business. Doesn't look like we have any unfinished business.
No unfinished business from staff.
Any reports from staff?
Yeah, just a few really quick reports. So right now, some things that you all have previously reviewed that are before City Council for consideration include, in addition to middle housing, transfer of development rights, which is the Canyon Park program, shoreline code amendments, which actually I'm realizing you all didn't see. The shoreline board saw them, but those are code amendments that are being considered by City Council, and then outdoor dining. So those things are all at our City Council in June. We're beginning to plan for summer engagement around the comprehensive plan. So we'll give you updates on that. And you'll hear a lot. I think this summer will be almost all comprehensive plan for you all. We are working on launching our engagement portal. So that's what the survey is hosted on right now. We're looking at launching that for the comprehensive plan and more widely for the city. We're aiming for May 22nd. So keep an eye out for that. And then Dave mentioned this previously, but we are currently reviewing HB 1110 and 1337 to better understand how that will impact the Planning Commission recommendation and City Council's final decision on middle housing and how we can incorporate those requirements with what's been recommended by Planning Commission. So that's just our quick update for this month.
Thank you. Any reports from members tonight? I'm sorry. Was there more report from staff?
I was just going to add, I should have added this while we were still talking middle housing, but we will also make, thank you for pointing out the issue with regard to R40,000. So we'll make changes also to the proposed code amendments to bring back.
I'm sure that will say we'll adopt the findings, conclusions, and recommendations as amended. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are an attachment to the findings. We will also go ahead and send this to Commerce for review so that we will still have the opportunity for council to adopt by the end of July. Yeah.
That is appropriate. Thank you. All right. Any reports from members? Okay. Anything to report to council? Go ahead.
I thought one other thing.
Yeah.
I had polled the commission about potential meeting on June 14th, which is the second Wednesday. So it is one that is in the bylaws as a planning commission meeting night, but we've been just doing first and third. But because of the postponement again of the meeting on the 24th, that was a date that could be opened in order to not double up on another night. So I heard back from, I think everybody. I haven't heard from Commissioner Jones, unless I missed that. So if you do know about the 14th now, let us know and we can go ahead and make a decision, or you can get back to me and we can do it via email also.
I'm sure it's fine. Sorry.
So would Commission like to go ahead and schedule that? That would be the public hearing on the downtown transition affordable housing voluntary incentives plan and code amendments.
I guess I'm chair tonight, so I'll say yes. Yep.
And
all right.
Dave, you reminded me of a question I had for the commission. We do have a meeting that falls on July 5th. Well, it's not July 4th. If you know now, or if you can let us know in the near future if you will be available that night. If you're not available, we could do July 12th. We can send out an email as well, but we're just wanted to be cognizant of the fact that people may be on vacation and want to make sure we have a quorum.
Thanks for being proactive about that. And I will direct commissioners to email their availability instead of looking through their calendars tonight. But please do that soon. Okay, any items to report to council? Going once, going twice. All right, I will entertain the motion of the evening. Yes, Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second? Yes, Commissioner Westerbeck.
I move, a second motion.
Okay.
To adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 There we go. Okay. We are concluded for the evening. And the next meeting, oh, my calendar's in July. Next meeting is the 7th of June. We'll see you all then. Thank you.